Hi everyone, welcome to the sixth episode of Mahabharat Chronicles. So before we start, let's do a quick recap. Devrat was now called Bhishma. He won three sisters, Amba, Ambika and Ambalika, for his half-brother Vichitravirya. While Ambika and Ambalika married Vichitravirya, Amba was rejected by everyone. She blamed Bhishma for ruining her life and she vowed to seek revenge from him. After years of prayers, God Shiva blessed her that she would get her revenge in her next birth. Other side, unfortunately, Vichitravirya also died, untimely like his brother, without any children. So to get the heirs to the throne, Satyavati first requested Bhishma to marry the widows so that there could be heirs to the throne. But Bhishma denied. So with no other option left, Satyavati called her long-lost son, Rishi Vyas, to have children with Ambika and Ambalika. Ambika and Ambalika had Dhritrashtra and Pandu with Rishi Vyas, and their maid had Vidur with Rishi Vyas. So there were three children in the Kuru household now. Time passed, the three children grew up. Dhritrashtra, though blind, was mighty and strong. Pandu was weak but handsome. Vidur was very learned. He specialized in politics, economics, philosophy and diplomacy. He was son of a maid but was treated respectfully by both Satyavati and Bhishma. They made him prime minister and royal advisor in the court of Hastinapur. Dhritrashtra was the eldest son and he was the rightful heir to the throne. But sadly, he was blind, and that made him weak and vulnerable. Vidur, as a royal advisor, rightly argued that Dhritarashtra was incapable of safeguarding his kingdom, and which is why he may not be respected by his subjects and even neighboring kingdoms. So, in the interest of everybody, he should take it as his duty to let go of the throne. Dhritarashtra was left with no choice. Vidur had smartly pushed him to the corner, leaving no scope for discussion. Now he had a choice to appear petty or selfish or take the high road. And he was reluctant and he hated Vidur's words of wisdom. Dhritarashtra desperately wanted to be the king, but with a heavy heart, he relinquished the throne for Pandu. Pandu was made the king of Hastinapur. He married Kunti and Madri, who were beautiful princes from the neighboring kingdoms. So in a way, he had a perfect, fulfilling life, and Dhritarashtra resented that. Pandu had everything which Dhritarashtra longed for. He wanted power and position. He felt as if he was cheated by fate. And resentment, if not controlled, turns into jealousy, and then hatred, and eventually into outright animosity. Would it happen with Dhritarashtra? Only time would tell. But his lust for power was clearly visible. And given his blindness, it was also difficult to find match for him. So when Bhishma got to know that King of Gandhar had a beautiful and pious daughter Gandhari, he went to visit Gandhar. He requested the king to marry his daughter with Dhritarashtra. Gandhari's father and brothers were reluctant. In fact, they were furious as to who would in their right mind marry their beloved daughter and sister to a blind man. They knew Dhritarashtra was not the king of Hastinapur. So they vehemently opposed the alliance and were upset with Bhishma for bringing that proposal. Why couldn't Bhishma bring proposal for Pandu? They questioned. They saw the proposal as Bhishma's intent to belittle them. Though Gandhari's father was scared to say no to Bhishma, because everybody knew that Bhishma would get his way by request or with weapons. And when Gandhari got to know about proposal, she agreed and told her father to accept the proposal. She was a devotee of God Shiva and believed it to be her destiny and God's will. But whether it was pride or love for daughter, Gandhari's father declined the proposal. Bhishma was a warrior who knew he was invincible. He was not somebody who would take no for an answer. In fact, he was just being polite in asking king's permission. He could have very well defeated the king and taken Gandhari for Dhritrashtra. So when the king declined his proposal, he did exactly what king feared. He challenged them in battle and defeated them. Gandhari's father and brothers fought valiantly, but they were no match with Bhishma. Bhishma was a skilled warrior. He could easily defeat and capture them. After defeating them in battles, Bhishma could have killed them, which was common after battle in those times, or he could have set them free, as anyway he could take Gandhari. But Bhishma did none of it. He did not want to kill them directly, but also did not wish to leave them free. So he came up with the most humiliating and torturous death sentence. He imprisoned Gandhari's father and brothers in a dungeon and took over the kingdom of Gandhar under Hastinapur. He then took Gandhari with him to be married to Dhritrashtra. I'll tell what happened with Gandhari in my next episode. Coming back to Gandhari's father and brothers. So each day in the dungeon, only a handful of rice was given to the king and his sons. And you know why? So that they would gradually die of starvation. Very cruel and inhuman way to kill enemies. Their hunger was unbearable. For days, the brothers fought for a morsel of food among each other. It was heartbreaking and humiliating for her father to see his sons fighting for food. He felt so helpless. After Amba, Bhishma ended up making one more enemy who despised him. Seeing no end to the torture, the helplessness turned into rage. The father and sons became weaker day by day, and they could see their end was near. It was a slow and tormenting death, and the father was burning with fury. So one day he spoke to his sons. We all will gradually die of hunger anyway. What's the point in dragging this life? We'll never be set free by Bhishma. So let's make our own destiny and seek revenge in our own way. Let us choose one of us to eat enough every day so that he can survive to avenge us. The sons were weak, but were unified by the idea of seeking revenge from Bhishma. They had a common enemy now. They agreed and chose their youngest brother Shakuni. They chose him to live as he was the most intelligent and conniving among them. Shakuni was best suited to seek revenge because they knew revenge with Bhishma could not have been on the battlefield. None of them were capable enough to defeat Bhishma. The only way was by way of shrewd diplomacy and planning, and Shakuni was expert in that. Every day since then, Shakuni ate the entire food and became physically stronger. He saw his family suffer and eventually die one by one. Shakuni wept, but his pain only strengthened his resolve. When his father was about to die, he poked a knife at Shakuni's feet. The injury made him limp. You will always limp, my son, and whenever you will limp, you will remember us and remind yourself to avenge us. He then asked Shakuni to make dice out of his bones after his death. These dice will be your weapon. They will follow your command. Be patient, you will get a chance to seek revenge. After these words, the king died. Shakuni carried out his father's wish and made the dice out of his father's bones. When Bhishma got to know that the king and his sons, except Shakuni, had died, he freed him. He freed him for no other reason but just out of kindness. And anyway, he thought, what harm would a limping Shakuni could anyway cause? Shakuni, on the other side, played the first step of his plan. He apologized to Bhishma. He apologized for his family's behavior profusely. And seeing Bhishma getting softened, he requested to stay with his sister. He requested Bhishma that Gandhari was only family member left to him, and he wished to live the rest of life with her. Bhishma was a warrior but a simple man. He was away from complications of mind. He was like somebody who saw world as black and white. He was brave and courageous but not cunning or shrewd. Such people are self-assured and confident. So Bhishma did not perceive any threat from Shakuni. But then, not all battles are fought on the battlefield. In fact, battles that are not fought on the battlefield are even more dangerous because you don't know where your enemy is. Anyway, Bhishma magnanimously agreed to Shakuni's request and ended up giving shelter to the enemy. Was this his mistake to underestimate Shakuni? Shakuni came to Hastinapur and stayed in the palace as a house guest. Dhritrashtra and Gandhari welcomed him wholeheartedly. Shakuni also loved his sister dearly, but now, more than that, he hated Bhishma and the Kuru kingdom. He hated his hatred pretty well, but he had no other purpose, only singular focus on seeking payback. He patiently waited for the opportunity. And his hatred only increased over time because he had to see that while he had lost everything, his family, his kingdom, his father, brothers, and above all, his pride, the kingdom of Hastinapur was flourishing under Bhishma. He also hated his sister was married to a blind man who was not the king. Seeing Pandu on the throne and Kunti and Madri as queens made him feel jealous. He felt that Kuru kingdom was not only atrocious to him and his father, but also unfair to his sister and Dhritrashtra. And of course, there was his limp, which never let him forget the plight of his father and brothers. It was both sad and scary, but Shakuni's life turned into long, relentless pursuit of revenge. Let me share another interesting thing here. You know the meaning of name Pandu? It means pale. And Dhritrashtra means the one who holds on to the kingdom. Pretty appropriate names as per their characteristics, isn't it? But then Shakuni means a bird. Maybe he was not meant to be a revengeful character. Or maybe he was, but hidden in plain sight. As Shakespeare once said, "Oh, what a tangled web we weave when first we practice to deceive." End of episode.